Good afternoon and welcome to Takeaways Podcast. On today's episode, I'm with Kieno Kammies, who is the co-founder of the Innovation City. So today's conversation is really going to be around how do you build a community around the innovation, right? And I think he's the perfect person to really share more about that. Hi, Kieno, man, and welcome to the podcast. How are you doing? How's Cape Town?
Ephraim, what an absolute pleasure to talk to you, man. It's been a long time. Cape Town is, I would say it's warm. It's not. We're entering into winter, but still. No clouds, 23 degrees, couldn't ask for a better day. Cape Town is doing well. And I mean, just, business-wise, it's pumping.
Great. So, as a disclaimer, Kieno has a background in journalism and, broadcasting. So don't be, surprised when he sounds much better than me on this, because he's been doing this for much more than I've been doing it. So let's start our conversation, at Innovation City. The community, it started in 2021. Can you please take me on, what really pushed you to co-found this hub and how it's been going so far?
So it's been, listen, initially when we started it, we had an idea as to where we'd want to be. We had no idea we'd be here. We have over 1 trillion rands with a market cap corporates in the building. We've got some exciting high growth startups and scale-ups and some VC firms, some of the top ones on the continent, including the likes of the Norrsken 22 Impact Fund, Endeavour, Lauch Africa, obviously the most prolific seed to pre-series A fund on the continent as well. And all we do really is we make connections. We understand the value that they offer. We understand what they're looking for. We make sure that when we bring people into the space itself, that they can add value and retrieve value out of the space as well. And it's really about connecting businesses to opportunities that can drive their bottom lines.
I talked to you, I think, 2 years back, and you made quite, an interesting point in that Innovation City is not really like a core working space. It's more of like a business enablement hub, right? Can you just share more on that description that you gave and, how it gels together with the work that, it has done over the years up to now?
I think we worked on the premise that you don't know what you don't know. Right, so if you're innovating in your own little corner, you only know what you're innovating on. You don't generally understand what other businesses are doing. So when we started it, the whole idea was to bring people in the innovation space, which by the way could be a very lonely space, to bring them together to understand what each other, what each of them are doing, and to be able to see how we can partner businesses, whether it's corporates with high growth startups or scale ups. And potentially getting the VCs to fund, those opportunities and bringing deal flow to those VCs. It's really about understanding what value means for the people in this space and then connecting them to the right people so that they can extract that value. And I think we've managed to do that. I think the one thing you always have to keep an eye on, if you're a successful entity like we are, you could sometimes lose your edge because then you can cruise, and we don't like cruising. We like always reassessing what we do, what we offer, who we offer it to. And I'm happy to say more and more businesses are coming to us wanting to get through the door. We've just signed up Saab Aerospace, Ekbergh Global, Ekbergh Africa just joined us as well, and they're deriving value. Ekbergh is looking for alternative data so that people can get better access to credit instead of using the narrow lens of a bank, for example. Saab, that do defense systems, they're looking for people who can develop AI quite effectively, whether it's agentic or other. And we can give them access to that in the space as well. So really, that is where we are. That is what we do to try and drive business outcomes. The co-working part of it is coincidental. You need a place to sit and you need a place to work. But if you're not getting a delivery on your core needs as a business and your KPIs, then you'd be wasting your time sitting in a space. So what we are able to do is open up the doors. It's not easy to sit down with the CEO of MTN Digital, for example, because they're in meetings all the time. But we're able to do that. We're able to find time. We're able to connect people. Today, I've just connected a dev firm that's working on reporting for VCs and automating that, I've just connected them with the VC. So that is what we're about.
Interesting thing about it is just the diversity, right? Because you have, like VC, you have startups, you have scale-ups, you have corporates, etc., etc. What really like inspired this kind of model? Because a majority of the spaces, either in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Nairobi, you find that it's either just like startups or just VCs, like etc. etc. What really like inspired you guys to really say, okay, I think it will work much more, like efficiently if we try to mix and match these, entities in the innovation ecosystem?
Well, COVID was an interesting one. I never thought about co-working spaces much until COVID hit. And then I realized everybody runs away from these co-working spaces because they need to work at home. So the question then is, what sort of value are you finding in the co-working space? If you're only going there for the internet, beautiful pictures on the wall, a desk to work from, you can find that pretty much anywhere. But the one thing you can't replicate is getting access to market, getting access to skills, getting access to education, which helps you improve your business's ability to stand out, to fight off the competition, to be more robust. And that is what I've noticed. I mean, so I've spent, 28 years in media with NBC New York or with Prime Media Broadcasting. And a lot of the time I've been chatting to businesses. And it's the same. It's the same with every business. You exist to acquire market share. You exist to look after your shareholders. You exist primarily to make sure that your customers are looked after. And if a space that you go into can't help you with any of those, then the big question is, why are you there? And we saw that gap and decided to provide something which is much more aligned to a business's reason for existence.
You started, like in media and broadcasting. How do you get to do the pivot to technology? Because now even beyond the great work that you are doing, like at Innovation City, you are also doing like a lot of things in technology.
I think it started with my disdain for negative news all the time. I'm not saying that there isn't a space for it. I think I used to start fighting with editors about why everything about Africa it's going to hell in a handbasket, right? Now, granted, we've got challenges. I can tell you now, there are countries that are supposed to be developed that are going through a hell of a lot more problems than we are at the moment. But I kept saying to the editors, why is it negative, negative, negative all the time? And I took my editorial decision on my show to deal with those negative issues with a different lens. And that lens was, let's talk to the people who are trying to fix it, right? So you're not sweeping those issues under a carpet, but what you are doing is going, okay, those issues exist. Unemployment exists. Youth unemployment massively in South Africa exists. Access to healthcare, access to proper education exists across the continent. So who are the people fixing it, right? And that gives you hope. I'm not here with pom-poms saying everything's perfect. Government officials are corrupt, a lot of them, right? They need to be called out for that. But we also need to say, if we only rely on government, and yes, we need to hold them to account, but if we only rely on them, then what are we doing? We are hiding to nowhere. What we should be doing is looking at those people that are creating businesses out of fixing these issues so that our young people on this continent can get access to future-fit education, so that businesses can scale great value that they're offering here abroad. And that is why I started speaking about that. Now, the more you speak about these things, I've done that for over 10 years, you start making connections with entrepreneurs and VCs and corporate. And I ended up studying an honors or a PGDip in small enterprise consulting, right? Because I started really getting interested in small enterprise consulting. I did a certificate course in artificial intelligence and business strategy through MIT. So I started improving my own skills. And then when what hit the shovel, I just decided I need to leave. I want to try something else. I'm 47, I'm 52 now, but I was 47 at the time. I wasn't going to be 50 doing a radio show. Those normally don't end well, right? Because media traditionally don't look after their people. They don't give pensions. I see you nodding there, but so you know what I'm talking about, right? You're just seen as another digit within a P&L in a media organization. And if they need to drive efficiencies, they don't pay pension. I mean, I don't know about the rest of the continent, but in South Africa, man, good luck if you get a pension. Good luck if you get looked after, right? You're supposed to be an independent contractor, and they still treat you as if you're a permanent employee. So with all of that, I've just had enough of it. Media's given me a great platform. It's given me a voice. It's allowed me to build a brand. I sort of leveraged that and said, okay, what can I do to contribute in the entrepreneurial space? And that's when I hooked up with UCT Online High School. I became part of the founding team that got it off the ground. And that's how I started, Innovation City with Stephan Ekbergh, who was someone I interviewed years ago. And we were friends for the last 10, 11 years. And this opportunity came about, and we took it with all fours. And I think the whole idea is no matter where you are in life, you always have to think about what's next. You can moan and complain about your current situation and ask yourself, why am I here? Or you can go, okay, but there are other things I'm interested in. How do I position myself to potentially move into that new sphere and make a difference? And that's what I did. And I was lucky, but I built my luck over more than a decade and a half. So
you brought up quite an interesting topic. So I'm going to come back to Innovation City, but you had me think about the role of technology and its broader role in kind of trying to solve the problems that are there, in South Africa, right? I mean, we have problems, we have crime, we have unemployment, etc. What role do you think technology is going to play in kind of trying to address, a majority of the challenges? Because I think most people think that startups are for rich people who have the money to not go out there and get a job and start a startup, etc. But what role do you think startups are going to play in helping to address the challenges that, our communities have?
If startups, out of all the businesses out there, right, it's these smaller businesses that actually create the jobs. So let's first start with the challenges, right? So you start right at the beginning. If we actually trained our children how to think about finding solutions, and if we taught them how to fail effectively at school, if we taught them design thinking, a lot more of them would be entrepreneurially minded. Because the one good thing about Africa is that we've got a lot of problems, right? And a lot of people would go, oh, why would you say that? Well, if you don't have problems, you can't have innovation. But you need to understand what that problem is. What is the actual anatomy of that problem? How are people experiencing this particular problem? Is there something I can do to make their lives easier? Can I get together with a whole lot of people who experience this particular problem and have worked on this particular problem from different angles to find a new way of doing it, right? And then you move to a solutions phase where you iterate. Now, if we don't teach them that, they're just going to see problems as problems, and they're going to wallow in their own sorrow, and nothing's going to change. So number one, we need to get the thinking right at school. We're not doing that. Not in South Africa, not anywhere. I mean, there might be pockets of excellence, but they're certainly not indicative of all our schooling systems. And it's not Africa. It's Europe is the same thing. We are heavily academic, nothing wrong with academics. But why in the world aren't we teaching our kids to be more creative? I took my son out of a private school where we paid 12,000 Rand a month, and we're paying 2,000 Rand a month at a government school, which delivers really good quality education if you're into the academic side of it and if you're into caps, right? So they're the best out of a bad bunch. But I then decided to get a 3D printer and teach him Tinkercad and how to take an idea or how to spot a problem, think you can have a solution, and then try and build that solution yourself. And their eyes light up when they see these things get created in front of them. An idea to something which is physical. And it doesn't have to be a 3D printer. Some of those are prohibitively expensive. But it could be that with anything, right? So we need to, first of all, create this culture of needing to fix the challenges that we have. Let's be innovative. Then we need to talk to them about how to start these particular businesses. Now, once they start these businesses, if you think about South Africa primarily, the township economy is a R1 trillion economy. There's money there. People spend that money on a daily basis. I was next to a guy who had about 800 Rand in his wallet, right? wearing his blue overalls, and he was buying something that he needed. It's not as if, because you live in a township, you don't have money, right? Companies like Bitprop will tell you that, Bitprop's one of the businesses we have in Innovation City. Bitprop essentially creates apartments around existing homes in places like Khayelitsha, where the person owns the home. And so they create all these, Bitprop pays for it up front through their investments. The owner's responsibility is to bring tenants in. Bitprop's responsibility is to do the behind the scenes stuff, the technical side. And their default rate on repayments is much lower than your middle class in South Africa. People are paying. So the township economy is valuable, and people need to understand that. It's also nice that people are too scared, because then it leaves people like us to go in there and experience what could be done. Anyway, so you were asking me about the role that these SMMEs can play. Once you created the business, you have to hire people if you're successful. In Little Park in Khayelitsha, there's a little pizza place, and they do the most amazing steak pizzas, and they keep rolling out these pizzas. Do you know what? There are 4 young people working there. They want to expand. Where's the expansion capital for them? We don't have that, right? But if they expanded and more people bought their pizzas, they could hire another 5 or 6. Now you multiply the one business in Little Park by 1,000 businesses across South Africa. So now all of a sudden you move from 8 people being hired to 8,000 people being hired in the informal sector, right? That's the role that businesses play. We have many more SMMEs in South Africa and across the continent than we actually have big corporates. Corporates are driven towards efficiencies, etc. And it's not in their best interest to have big salary bills, right? But your SMMEs are the ones that drive employment and economic growth. So that's the role that SMMEs can play. And I think you asked about technology as well. A person I respect tremendously is Hans Otterling. Hans started the Norrsken 22 Impact Fund, the $200 million fund. And he always says to me, Kieno, the one thing that excites me is that we've got a couple of 100 million people under the age of 19 on the continent. And he said technology, so internet penetration on the continent, if you're using normal phones, is actually not that low. It sits at about 50 to 60, I think even 70%. If you just talk about people who have access to a phone, it could be a feature phone or not. And he said that's exciting because education can be accessed through those devices. Now, obviously it's limited because the cost of internet is very high, but if we find solutions around that, if we bring the MTNs and a lot of these other businesses on board and say, how do we make that? How do we zero rate this? We can start educating young people with future skills. And that's another opportunity for businesses to say, okay, education system currently is great. It's got academics and whatever, but we want to teach young people how to vibe code, I've seen so many jobs on LinkedIn where they're looking for a prompt engineer. And you know what the sad thing is? You don't need a matric for that. You don't need to finish school for that. You can learn to prompt engineer at the age of 15. And you know what? You'd be a viable person to employ. So this whole thing about the schooling system, unless you want to do engineering and be a doctor, I don't want a doctor who studied on Udemy. I want a doctor who went to a university. But I also don't want someone to build a plane because they learned it on a YouTube channel, not working for me, right? So I need someone who's done engineering. I need someone who's been to, so I'm not saying universities are dead. What I am saying is that there are these future skills that are now becoming so prevalent and so core to businesses that these young people need to learn. Because as Africa, we can help build the world. And we need the skill set to do it. China's done it. India's done it. Why can't we?
Your response really it reminds me of the conversation I had with Zach on the podcast, where he was saying that, when he came to Africa to do VC, he realized the amount of the impact that technology could have in really trying to address, a majority of the problems that we have on the continent. And beyond just that, right, it really equips people with the kind of skills that you are not going to get anyway. And as you already stated, you don't need to spend 12 years in high school to be able to acquire these particular skills, but still they are really high quality skills, right? So I think that's quite an interesting point yet that you brought up there. At the moment, what do you think the ecosystem has done right so far, and what room for improvement do you think is still there to really try to double down on the impact that it has made in the past few years?
In their niches, they're doing some good stuff. So Technopark Stellenbosch doing really good stuff. If we look at Norrsken House in Rwanda, they're doing good stuff. You can go across the continent and find good people doing good things. The one thing that we can all improve on is how do we take best practice that we've created and how do we assist other people to do the same thing? How do we partner? How do we collaborate to, I think if we all collaborated and we took our strengths and combined those, we could really push innovation a lot further than we are at the moment. So it's going back to why we started Innovation City, right? You don't know what you don't know. So let's put you in a position where you know what you don't know so you can do something about that. So for me, it's collaboration. I think there are enough clever people out there doing good stuff. And then the other thing I think we can do as well is it takes a village to raise a kid, right? We need to take this village called Africa. Yes, it's made up of different countries and laws and regulations, but a kid's a kid, right? How do we work together to raise our kids, to give them the best opportunity to create the best future for themselves and ourselves through working together? And that is key.
I'm coming back now to, Innovation City. I mean, how many of the startups and the scale-ups are currently there again?
Yeah, we've got about 80, between 80 and 90 businesses in the space. We're about 90% full. Of those businesses, I'd say 60 to 70% of them are high-growth startups and scale-ups. The rest are VCs and corporates. And that's where we find ourselves at the moment. It's a microcosm of a successful ecosystem which can be replicated.
And are there plans to replicate it?
We won't take Innovation City anywhere else. Innovation City is Innovation City. We've got a no arsehole policy. So we don't get people to muddy the waters, dirty the waters. To keep that culture the way it is, the problem with expansion is you become big and you become like a big business and a corporate and you start losing all identity. I, in my case, am happy to work with other businesses across the continent to develop their own playbooks. So, I've got my own media platform that we're going to be launching, innovateafrica.news, that is going to be launching, and I'm going to be asking you to contribute towards that too, because I love your work. So we're launching that, but on the back end of that media platform, I have an advisory service, an advisory firm, and myself and Dr. Ralph Futterman from UCT, he played a huge role in getting the D School up and running at UCT, which is the design thinking school. We've created a consultancy that basically will help corporates design their own innovation track. But the other thing we're going to do is help people with businesses to breathe life in their properties. So an ecosystem doesn't only have to be about innovation. It could be about what that area needs right now. And yes, there'll be an aspect of innovation, but not anywhere close to what Innovation City does, for example. In my personal capacity, happy to work with other people, but I think as a business, we singularly focused on Innovation City being Innovation City and forming strategic partnerships globally so that, and with partners that have the same character as ours, the same vision, same outlook, similar outlook. We don't always have to agree on everything. I think sometimes diversity is very important for innovation, but no one wants idiots running around the building all the time or being rude and not helping young people. We don't want those type of people. We want to work with people who actually care about growing timber as much as we care about, growing little mini unicorns.
On the management side, which is really what keeps the wheels on track, right? I imagine that a startup has a different set of the requirements and needs compared to a corporate like your MTN, and then also a VC has a different kind of needs. How do you kind of gel these and ensure that the management of the hub, is really, it accommodates all the needs of all these players to ensure that they really get from the hub what they need?
So managing the community is essential. I play a huge role in managing the community in the sense of keeping an eye on the ball. So from a strategic lens perspective, if you're not having the right conversations with the right people, you're not going to know what they need and what they can offer. So that's important. It's important for that. And we also encourage our management to speak to everybody. It's everybody's job to find out what other people do. So while you're running partnerships or marketing or events, etc., everybody needs to know who sits in our hub, what they offer, where the opportunities are, so that when they meet someone else, they're also able to bring a solution to the table, a connection to the table. So once again, it's not rocket science other than keep your ear to the ground, speak to people, know what they're doing. And if you know what they're doing, it's a bit like, being in a relationship. There's that book called The Love Language. You might take the bin out every Monday because, the dirt's going to get collected, but all your partner wants is for you to hold the hand. And if you think you're doing everything that you need to do for the household, but you're not holding the hand, there's a lack of communication and it'll build distrust, and it might not be a very long relationship. It's no different with business. If you don't understand what people are doing, if you're not understanding the value that they require and that they offer, how do you bring value about? It's all about communication. Communication is the one thing that can kill businesses.
Whilst we're still on the topic of the management, right? I would like to think of, like innovation hubs as kind of like, like sandboxes, right? In that they really test like, the kind of the relationships that have never been tested. I mean, as you already stated, it's so rare for like a startup to have a VC as like a co-tenant, right? Because then, if you're a startup, you're like at lunchtime, you can meet Zach there at the kitchen and pitch him, there and there, right? So I think it's such like a great way to really like test like the relationship that can never be, tested anywhere else, right?
Yeah, and I think that is, I remember a story, so ShopRite X, a lot of time for them, and we had a dinner, our launch dinner a few years ago, and there's a guy called Colin Corsi who started a company called Cloudy Deliveries, using young people on the street to do deliveries. But on the continent, not every road is marked. So trying to use Google Maps, you'll fall flat in your face. But these young people understood the roads, the people, and they did deliveries. And I sat him next to the MD of ShopRite X, and Neil was blown away. Just because you're a startup does not mean you don't have anything corporates, because it's the perception that we build, right? We build everything around the bloody P&L and how much money you make and da-da-da-da-da. The strength of any business is what problem are you solving for whom, and how do you solve that more effectively than anybody else, right? And that is the key thing. And you can be an SMME with that solution. You might not have the capital, but a corporate might see value in it and might want to invest in you. So that is why we went for this model about getting everybody together so that those conversations can happen.
And those are like a really, really critical conversation. I want to speak now. How do you pitch, like a corporate? Because I'm assuming that to be able to get the startups to be a part of the hub is a much easier job than like a corporate. How do you pitch them? What do you sell as the value proposition?
I would say, what are your 7 words as a business? So if I had to maybe think of ours off the cuff, we connect trusted communities to deliver outcomes. That's it. You want a community of trust, people who you look up to, so when they give you advice, you trust their advice. Right. Most business is done based on relationships. I'm more likely to do business with someone that I trust, either through extension, through knowing someone who knows them and can vouch for them, than someone who I've just met for the first time and they're making all sorts of promises on paper and pitch decks. So you make all the promises in the world, but there's the emotional engagement, the trust that plays such an important role. Kit van Zyl from Knife Capital once said, 80% of VC investments is investing in people that they know. It doesn't have to be a friend or family, but they know them through other people. So I think I'm answering your question, Hope, in that, trust is such an important component in all of this.
The other thing that I love about you guys is, I read your newsletter, the Tuesday one, where you just share like a lot on, the work and the innovation that goes on there. And also, I think it helps, right? In that, obviously, not all of the startups in Cape Town can be able to come there like and be a tenant, right? But you guys, like you produce content, you do, events, etc., you do the outreaches, etc., to ensure that the value of the hub does not just stay within the walls of the hub, right? It also goes to people who cannot be a part of the hub. So I think that's such a great way that you guys have thought about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think getting the message out and inspiring other people to do the same thing. You see, if you kept all of the stuff to yourself, what a boring world it would be. I mean, you actually exist to try and make the world a better place. Nobody's in Ireland. No one can fix everything themselves, right? If you can encourage other people to reach out to you and to say, how do we become part of the solution? We'd like to offer our services. We'd like to sit in your hub, whatever. Communication, to my previous point, is essential for us to get that across. And even if it's just giving encouragement to, because being a startup and working in innovation is exceptionally lonely, right? Because you're always seen as the maverick, the shit stirrer, the person who doesn't want to do things by the book. Meanwhile, we all know the book's going to strangle you in 5 years from now because, you know what, everybody else is innovating around you. If we can just get one or two people to look at that and go, we want to do things differently, then we're doing our job. And it's important for media to do that. I love what you're doing, right? I've been in media. I'm privileged to have been in media as long as I have. But, damn it, man. They need new management. Media houses need people who can think a little further than their TikTok metrics. I told one media house one day they can keep their online platform because I'm not into TikTok metrics. I'm into TikTok metrics, by the way, in my mind is, we got 100,000 views. 100,000 views, 100,000, whoo, exactly. I would rather have 50 of the right people, right, looking at my stuff, be inspired, they've got the resources to change things around them. Then 100,000 people look at it and go, oh, how sweet, oh, cool, and then they move on, they didn't do a damn thing. Then what? What do numbers actually mean? And this is the problem with sales in media, right? You need to drive, if you're not using impact metrics, then you're just doing FMCG. You might as well just go and sell toothpaste and do whatever else you like, and everybody wants toothpaste every now and then, give them that. But if you want to change the world, you want to get the most impactful people, and they don't have to have money. These could be people with influence within their own communities, to start movements, to do things differently, to try and change the experiences that they have. Those are the people you want to listen to your podcasts and your video casts, or whatever you want to call these things.
It reminds me of this, like in startups, how, they always talk about, like TEM and then, like SAM and SOM, etc., etc. So, an example, like a startup who will be starting off and they are trying to create like a solution, and they will say a maximum of these people, like 2 million of these people are going to have like the access to the product.
I mean, listen, obviously, if you're looking at investors, they look at your total addressable market and all of these things. But you start with a story. That's the reason we're launching the Story Design Academy, right? Is because tell me about the problem that you're solving. Tell me about Kieno at the age of 15, who has to walk 5 kilometers at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to school because it's the only place that has access to light so that he can study before his test at school. Tell me about the fact that Kieno has to now put up with the dangers of walking alone because his mom needs to catch a taxi to work and he's on his own. But because he wants to pass his test, because his mom hasn't received a good salary, because they don't have lights, he has to walk to school, put his life in danger, but just to go and study and get that extra hour and a half so he can do better in the test. You tell that story and you say, but Kieno's not the only one. You've got Ephraim, you've got 700 other people in this village alone that risk their lives every day just to study early. So what we're doing is we've got a solution that brings light into spaces, electricity into spaces, and it costs 50 cents per kilowatt, whatever, right? Let's make it up. And this is going to change the lives of a whole lot of people out there, and we explain the why by why. So it's the sort of story. How do you design the story? Tell us the story. Tell us who you're actually addressing, what the pain point is. Then tell me how many of them are there in the world, right? And then tell me how your solution is going to make a difference in their lives. And by the way, how about making a difference in their lives and making it accessible and affordable, I'm still able to make some money and give you a return on your investment in the business. That's a better way of sharing your story than all these big graphs and charts. The reason why people don't like consultants anymore is they come in, they take your watch, they tell you, can I tell you the time? They charge you for telling the time, and then they want to sell your watch back to you. Right, that's what a lot of consultants do. They also pretend to know. They also pretend to know everything. I hope I'm not going to upset some consultants, but if I do, then they may just get over themselves. But whatever happened to, we don't know what the answer is, but we've got a journey, and we'll get the right people and bring them on the journey with you to help find the right answer for this business. We can help you navigate the road. And then, we don't hand over our suggestions so that you can screw it up over 6 months and we know you're going to phone us back because you couldn't implement it. We will actually maybe sign a small SLA with you. We will stand side by side to help you implement it so that you don't need to come back to us all the time.
You bring up such a vital point in that the business of the innovation is really a business of not knowing. And then your job is really to try to figure it out. So if you are, like in innovation and then you come in and you pretend to know it all, then really you might not be like in the right kind of business, right?
Absolutely. I think you want people who authentically understand that it's important to take the knowledge and the experience and the know-how of people who are immersed in the problem to help us find the solution to that particular problem. It's called discovery. Right. And I remember going to a little consultant's, I actually flew to Harvard to go and do this consultant's toolkit. It was the most disappointing thing in the world. Where, they talk about how consultants sometimes mimic what the customers are saying to pretend that they know what they're talking about. And then they have to go and do research. That's what I'm saying. When you go in, just be honest with everybody, for crying out loud. Tell everybody, we don't know the answers, man. But we've got people who sure as hell can tell us what the problem is. And we've got other people who've got the skills to tell us what the solution is. And then we're going to find the best way of defining that solution within your business. So having people who are authentic from that perspective is important. Not wannabes who walk around with $3,000, I think it's probably even too cheap for them, $3,000 Dolce & Gabbana suits, showing you how they're wearing their Philippe, but whatever that thing's called, that watch. Right. I'm not interested in those people. I'm really not. I'm not interested in these consultants who've built billions out of BS half the time. Right. Not interested in those. I want authentic people, and quote me on this, authentic people who care about the business, who really care about the problem, who really care about making a difference. And who are humble enough to say we don't have the answers to everything, but we're willing to walk the road with you to find it.
As we close off our conversation, Innovation City turns 5 in November, I think, right? In the next few years, right, what will you really use to define the success of the hub, right? What would you kind of try to look back and say we have done, an incredible amount of work? What would be that kind of, metric you would use to decide that?
The success of our customers inspired by the support we gave them. And those could be jobs created. It could be markets gone into and by default jobs created. Obviously, increasing your turnover. So financial. But the bottom line is it's not about us. And I don't say that frivolously. It's literally all about the people we bring into the hub. And if we can say this hub has changed this business in this manner, and it's for the good, and they've been telling other businesses about us, and they've been knocking on our door because they want to replicate the success, they want to be part of the network, then that would be success.
To wrap up our conversation, you are obviously doing a lot of work beyond just Innovation City. You already stated that you are launching a new platform. Can you just share more on that with our audience?
It's called Innovate. It's something I did with Business Day TV. I'm still doing with them. But I've decided that a lot of online media just don't cover innovation the way they should. As a matter of fact, the only time you really hear any type of innovation being covered is when someone's closed a round and then it's all about the bloody round. Okay, it's not about what the business actually does. It's not even about the journey as to how you... I mean, Andrew Beaumont, who used to be at Knife, used to say, this is it. These media, they just cover rounds and investment, but they don't talk about people's lives impacted. They don't talk about the challenges it took to get to this particular round. And it's to create a platform where we do video interviews with the people who innovate and impact lives, but we also have a news feed that basically tells you what's happening in an aggregated group of innovation hubs globally. So news feeds from those hubs plus other news as well. So it's really about giving the global innovation ecosystem as it pertains to Africa a voice. So that's pretty much it. By the end of by the end of May, we'll launch it. It's called, well, you go there now, you'll see one or two little things, but it's basically called innovateafrica.news. And I've got one interview up there at the moment with Hans Ortlin from Norrsken. And then what I'm also doing is that media company is also going to have an advisory service. Right, so that's Dr. Futerman and myself advising corporates how to innovate internally. Also, what do you do with your buildings? How do you breathe life into them? That's the advisory service. Then we've partnered with Summit.deals. They've got they've got family offices and a whole lot of VCs, etc. Some PE firms. It was, I think, $350 million. I think it is the number. I stand to be corrected. Assets under management. And what we do is when we interview these businesses, we onboard them onto that particular platform. Then we're also looking to do our own search fund as part of this media thing. And then finally, that Story Design Academy, which teaches people how to tell their business stories more effectively. And we also help them put their podcasts together, etc. So it's a media company that's also a company that empowers. And then the other thing quickly that I'm doing is myself and Esat from MTN, we've just launched TechBridge. And TechBridge is a global business that connects various technology nodes. We've done Turkey and South Africa, and we'll be looking to expand that globally. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, man, it sounds like you're going to have quite like a busy 2026, eh?
I want to have a good one, busy 2026. I've decided not to turn up to the opening of envelopes and spend more time building the things I really need. And we all need, I think, at least.
100%, man. I hope that we'll be able to partner, like in a few of these initiatives, because they really align with what I'm really like trying to do from like, like a media and like content point of view, right?
Hundreds. But that's what it's about, Ephraim. It's about collaboration. Because together the two of us are stronger, better, we go further.
I would like to commend you for the great work that you have done over the years, and I would also like to wish you all the best in everything else that you'll be doing, you and the team and everyone else involved.
And you too, my brother. I want to commend you on being that megaphone for innovation. You've always done it. Keep that flag flying. We notice it and we appreciate it and respect it. So thank you.
All right, cheers, Kieno, man. Really appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure chatting, Ephraim. Have a wonderful day.